that inflation could actually be quite low.
Some of it does appear to be transient or idiosyncratic. You need a bit of a reset.
Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. I have with us on our channel today a special guest star. Right now, I have Michael Bordenaro with us. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Travis. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm ready to get absolutely bonkers with you, my friend.
I love you, brother.
I'm waiting to say that with you.
Dude, I appreciate you saying that, man. So you guys, Michael is here, gracefully here and really from the bottom of my heart, Michael, I know you're busy. So thank you for coming on to the channel. Thank you for, trying to spit some facts into my subscribers and our viewers. And what we're going to talk to today, guys, is basically the signs that we are in a 2022 housing market crash. So I'm essentially going to go over about 6 points of data with Michael, and I'm going to let him share his opinion with us on why he thinks the data matters. Now, before I do that, you guys remember, neither one of us are your financial advisors, but our bio is as your friend, someone that's trying to help you, expert in the industry. So if you can, please like this video, subscribe if you haven't, and then jump over to Michael's channel right here. Michael Bordenaro right here. You guys see this? This guy's an absolute stud. He's a beast. And I've told you guys on my other videos, the reason I like Michael so much is he's a realtor that was able to adjust his content. He was a realtor's realtor on YouTube. He was doing top 10 places to live in Florida and things like that. But as soon as Michael understood the direction of the housing market, he is one of the only YouTube realtors that has been successfully able to adjust. He's sounding the alarm. Mad respect to you, Michael, for doing that, brother.
Thank you very much, Travis. Yeah, I saw the trend, just like you said. It was pretty obvious, especially living over here in Miami. We saw things starting to turn upside down here almost overnight, especially with rent prices. It's like, okay, there's 1 million people moving in. Things are starting to go nuts. Something's going down. So time to start talking about it.
Yeah. So my first question, man, is how do you get your hair to look so cool?
Oh, that's a trade secret. I'm afraid I can't share that with you, Travis.
Dude, I have such bad hair days, Michael. But before you got here, I was like, I got to make my hair better than him. Dude, I'm having like a bad hair day, whatever, dude. I absolutely love your style, man. I find it very entertaining. I love how you walk outside. I love everything about it. I'm going to pull up, dude. Let me pull up my first leading indicators here. I'm going to pull up, and this will be referenced to my description. This is a Redfin article, and Michael, I really want to point out, a couple things here, specifically here, okay? Basically, Redfin is saying that prices have declined on average 5.5% from the record high in June, okay? But also, not only, are they acknowledging a 5.5% price reduction from peak, they're also we finally have our first 2 metro areas, Oakland and San Francisco, both California, of course, that have their year-over-year price declines. So we're finally starting to see that year-over-year price declines that so many people like to talk about and like to point out that the market's still okay. We have year-over-year price growth, but the reality is that's starting to end. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm glad we're starting with this, Travis, because the first thing I want to touch on when it comes to those price cuts and the median house price going down that a lot of people forget about is I see all the time people saying in my comments, and the counter argument to this is, well, I'm not going to get excited about a 50K price cut when house prices have gone up 300K in my area. Yeah. Okay, fair. Don't get excited about that. But what you should get excited about is that the trend is reversing.
Yeah.
And the housing crash does not happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight last time. It's not going to happen overnight this time. Last time it took 3 to 4 years for the bottom to be met, from the time prices started going down in 2007 to around 2011 when prices kind of bottomed out. Look at that. That's a 4-year window. So if that's any indicator of where this is going to go, then it's not going to happen overnight. But this is just the beginning right here that we're seeing things starting to change. And, people don't like calling it a crash because it doesn't look like one yet, right? It's not 20% off yet. It's not 30% off yet. But if we keep seeing 5% this month and 3% next month and 6% in October and so on, that adds up to a 40% price cut over several years.
I am really glad that you made that point, Michael, because I get those comments all the time. It's not that I'm like, I get frustrated, but I try to explain to people exactly what you just said. The housing market is a slow moving juggernaut. It's not like the stock market. You're not going to, see massive fluctuations. But the thing is, like you just pointed out, the really positive thing here is even though we're not like at 20, 30, 40% equity drop, the trends are reversing, which is especially important to put in perspective, being that we're coming out of the most red hot housing market in the history of the housing market. So to go from something that is red hot to now we're getting like surges of inventory when we have historically low inventory, to me, that's a clear sign of the direction. So what can you tell people as far as like, how could you suggest they stay patient? Because we got to understand, first time home buyers especially, there's a bit more emotion there, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying it's bad necessarily. It just depends on the type of emotion. But what can you say, Michael, to help give some encouragement to people that are waiting?
Well, I know first-time home buyers are probably always the most antsy to get in, right? Because they're the ones that usually have the most FOMO. They're excited about taking the next step in life and getting into a new house and not being a renter anymore. But clearly, this is not really the time to be doing that. And obviously, you're always going to have that certain group of people that just needs to do it for one reason or another.
Yeah.
They're moving, they're getting a job relocation, they have a baby on the way. Whatever the reason might be, sometimes people just can't wait. And to those people, I say, well, I hope you're going to keep that house for a long time. That's what I really have to say to them. But, if you don't need to get into that house in the next few months and you have time to wait, you have a solid lease right now where you're not being gouged in rent and it's still cheaper to rent than it is to own, then I say, what's the rush? Why jump in now at basically the worst time ever? At worst or at best case scenario, maybe the prices could inch up a tiny bit more in the next few months. But I think the odds of that happening, Travis, are slim to none right now. So,
yep.
You are taking a little bit of a chance, but at the same time, as these interest rates keep going up, as the housing market becomes more unaffordable, who is going to be out there left to buy these houses? That's what I'm thinking. Like, there's not going to be any buyers left. Everybody thinks that BlackRock is going to come in and save the day and buy everything. They're dumping properties too, So I just don't see it. I don't see this trend continuing forward where, prices are going to go up forever and everything's going to be hunky dory. It's just not going to be like that.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly agree. And case in point, I'm going to pull up now, Michael. So that was, and I believe we need, I don't want to be some conspiracy theorist necessarily, unless you want to be. I'll play that game. But I think this data is tainted. I think we're in worse situation than it appears we're in. But we're kind of at the mercy of the data. So, that's 5.5% according to Redfin price decline. But let me show you this chart right now. This chart is crazy, dude. So this is Fred. And I lean on Fred more than any other data provider like CoreLogic, Black Knight, Zillow, Redfin, all of them. But here's the median sales price for new homes sold in the United States. And take a look at this, Michael. So the pricing for new homes, not resale, just new homes, peaked in April at 457,000. So the peak from April to right now, and this is lagging, dude. Like, this is only to June. Once July hits, we're finally going to be under year-over-year price growth for new sales. I think that happens next report. But we're down over 13%, about 13.5% from peak, which to me means that if you waited, that's why I keep saying the longer you wait, the better the deal. And that's only for a certain period of time. Don't get me wrong. But look at this, dude. If, people that purchased in April, I mean, they could see the same houses start plummeting in equity. And I realize that some of the houses are smaller and they're, being sold for less. And I understand that has a play in things. But nevertheless, the trend is evident. And I see this in my local housing market. Can you touch on new home sale price declines?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, based on that graph you just showed me, Travis, it's like, okay, what do we see when those peak prices were there? We saw ultra low interest rates before that. People were locking in rates at the beginning of the year when they could still get low 3% interest rates, which allowed those prices to climb as high as they did because demand was through the roof, right? And then after that trend, what are we seeing? After April, all the rates are up. Nobody has those locked in low rates anymore. Demand starts going through the floor. And now builders are going to start having to give incentives again to get rid of these homes. And I think that's exactly the picture that this graph paints right there. So, and in areas like even down here in Florida, Southwest Florida and in Central Florida, they have a ton of new homes being delivered over the next 6 months to a year. And, you know, they're not even occupied yet. They're not even finished yet. So this is just getting started with the new homes as well, coming to market and having to sell at a bargain price, because what builder is going to want to hold on to those properties at a loss month over month?
And you want to know what's really interesting is not only are the prices down and the sales down, inventory is up. So they're building more right now. They're not necessarily building more, but they're finishing what they've started.
Yes.
So even though they kind of need to pump the brakes to protect themselves, a lot of them can't. They can't stop building. They're in the midst of building. So do you see in your, because Michael, I get, a lot of subscribers that are discouraged out in Florida, various places in Florida, like Travis, we don't see it yet. And I'm like, you guys just be patient, like what we're saying here. Can you talk into your local housing market and whether or not you're specifically seeing new homes being reduced in price?
Well, because I live in Miami, here is kind of a special market.
Yeah.
And, inventory is still relatively low, and anything new that they build here is in the multi-millions of dollars. So it doesn't really apply to the average Joe looking to buy a $400,000 house. We don't have that here. There are no new developments in this price range in Miami. So it's something that just doesn't exist here. Now, what they do is they tear down old condos and they build ultra luxury high rises in their place that start at $4 to $5 million and up. And when it comes to houses, they'll tear down an old house or build a brand new one and on an empty lot that sells for, $8 million, something like that. So it's out of touch with reality here.
Yeah. And that kind of, I can kind of dovetail off of that to a point I like to make to people that can understand this. Affordability and pricing are two different things, right? We know the price of houses right now, it's way too high. But in some markets, even with a 60% drop in equity, like Miami, Southern California, Orange County, even with the 50 to 60% drop in equity, 90% of people still can't afford it.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
So I think that, a lot of people that are discouraged have to understand that if they still can't afford, right. If things drop, because some people like, Travis, I need to drop 80%. I still can't afford this. I'm like, dang, you may, it's hard for me to say this, Michael, but I mean, you may want to move. You may want to move. I was in SoCal for 29 years. I felt married to my house payment. I only worked to pay my bills. I moved out of SoCal, moved to Houston, Texas, man. I finally feel like I'm free. I finally feel like I'm enjoying life. So I hate that some people are stuck in the rat race, man. I felt stuck, when I was younger in SoCal.
You just read my mind, Travis, because I was just going to say that as well. I see the next trend moving forward with real estate, because I just did a video the other day talking about places where prices are still going up. And where are they? They're in relatively unknown markets or places people would not normally move to, like Wichita, Kansas, and, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and places like this that you would never think of that, well, real estate's going up here. Why? Because it's affordable. People can move there and still buy a nice house and have a good quality of life. And I think that's what we're going to see. And this is our history, right? This is in our blood as Americans. We never stayed put. If we did, there would be no California. There'd be no American West. The American way is to go where the next opportunity is. And I know it's not that simple for everybody to just pick up and leave their job or leave their family behind or whatever. But you have to look at, where can you have the best quality of life on your budget, because it might not be where you live right now.
I agree with you so much on that, Michael. And, then that's why, even though I believe, this bubble was created from hyper demand, not lack of supply, I still believe we have a long-term supply issue. I still feel like that. I feel like if there was just more options in these very dense metro areas, I think there's going to be less migration. But you can't fault people that especially Americans, they want a better, more affordable life. You can't, because natives get pissed, right? Like Texas, I've got comments like, stop talking about Texas. We don't want any more Californians here. Like, oh, you're a Californian. But I'm like, but I married into a native Texan. So that makes me a Texan. So ease up a little, right? But I mean, dude, it's a problem, man. And that brings me to my next thing. I'm going to pull up an inventory graph. Okay. So take a look at this, also from Fred. This is from Fred Economic Data. This is housing inventory, active inventory. Now, this is kind of pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we started with about 1 million active listings, which is traditionally low. I get it. But, what I noticed here is right now we're sitting at 747,000 active listings. As you know, that's still not a lot. That's still not a lot. But the interesting thing is from February to now, that's a 98% surge of inventory. And to me, that represents demand is shattered. Supply is going up. But can you see this number, Michael, reaching pre-pandemic levels this year? And then talk into that a little bit, if you could.
Yeah, that's another perfect graph that you showed there, Travis, because look at that and just show like, okay, we're at 747,000 now, and that's only as of July or June. Is this July? Okay,
yeah, July.
So pre-pandemic was only hovering around 1 million. So we're almost there, guys. I mean, It's not that far away. If we keep getting listings hitting the market like we're getting right now, we're going to be there by the end of the year, probably, maybe even sooner. I just made a report on Orlando. Orlando saw a 20% increase in their inventory in 1 month. So that's just cherry picking data. Obviously, it's just one city in the whole country. But I think that's what you're going to start seeing across the country, because we're seeing sellers starting to panic and feel like, okay, I need to sell now. I've been waiting it out, waiting for the top. Obviously, it has passed. I need to get out. But not every seller is going to feel like that, right? Not everybody has an urgency to sell, but a lot of them, they're going to try to capitalize on this, want out now while they still can. And we see this reversal in the remote work trend as well. People are getting called back to the office that maybe bought a house in one of these affordable areas. Maybe they need to unload it now. They don't want to be a landlord. There's so many different reasons that can bring these homes to market. And I think we're going to touch on some more of them later in this video.
Yeah, we are. And, and I can see the inventory surge coming from investors, coming from people that own second homes, and then obviously new builders. Like that's a bit different than 2008, right? People, but anyways, you got to look at it a little bit differently. So, we've talked about essentially prices. We looked at resale prices, according to Redfin, down 5.5% from peak, which means if you waited, you won. We also talked about new home sales being down 13.5% from April. We showed you the national average of inventory increase of 98%, which essentially, again, means if you waited, you have double the options, you have cheaper, more affordable housing. But now let's talk about the other thing. Because all signs of a correcting, crashing negative equity market. Let's talk about the state of American households. And I want to talk about this, Michael, because I hear constantly from the Federal Reserve, sometimes from other channels, about how wealthy and well-off Americans are right now. And I think that people are getting this data wrong, because a lot of these people bring up wealth charts that include equity. And you and I both know that people can't just touch their equity. There's a process of selling. It's tedious, it's expensive. And to me, that's not a true demonstration of where Americans are at. So I think that what we really need to be looking at is the savings rate. How much money are people's savings, right? And I'm going to pull this up for you, brother. Now, again, I stick with Fred. It's a national average. I feel like it's the least biased. This is a personal savings rate, and this is based off of percent. Okay, so this is percent of income. Now, what I want to point out, Michael, is I want to look at pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic is to the left here. Okay, so pre-pandemic, the savings rate was, you see how high this is, dude? I mean, it's like 7 to 8%, right? Basically 7%. And what I want to point out is, and I just talked to Steve about this as well. You should talk to Steve, man. He's a really cool YouTuber. But right now, look at this. It's 5.1%. We are lower, and I would argue considerably lower than when we were pre-pandemic, which means all of that money that we got over the last 2 years, it's gone, dude.
That's right.
Where did the money go? Where did the money go? This is crazy. So look at this. So again, massive plummeting. We're way lower than we were pre-pandemic. This is what we're looking at as personal savings rate. Can you touch on that, brother?
Yeah, well, obviously those spikes are no big surprise. Those are the stimmy checks that everybody got. So we all know that's why those rates went up so high right there. And then that's where people had to make a decision in life. Are you going to use this to blow it on something stupid? Are you going to put it into a house like maybe some smart people did? The getting was still good back then. You probably could have got a really good deal on a house, low interest rate, decent price. And people who did that, I commend you, because you probably made one of the best deals of your whole life right there. But people who blew it and spent it on garbage are in trouble right now. And more people are starting to go into debt just to pay for their regular everyday expenses. And you touched on the equity being, one of the reasons that people are like wealthy now, Travis. Well, let's not forget, what people are also doing with their equity. They borrow against it constantly to live a lifestyle that they probably shouldn't be living. And they take out these HELOC loans. Let's remind people also, those are adjustable. Those are going to continue to go up as mortgage rates go up and interest rates go up. And I think you just have a ton of people living above their means, essentially what that means right there. This savings chart is horrific because people don't have a grip on reality when it comes to financial savviness, really.
Let's try to put this in perspective. Let's try to put ourselves in their shoes. Right now, I saved my money. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, they're free money. I'm gonna save this, or I'm gonna invest it. I did not waste my money. But look at what happened, right? So we have to understand that, sadly, and I don't like this, that most of the population, a lot of it is stuck in the rat race, bad spending, poor, credit card spending habits. Look at how they were flip-flopped. In 2020 and 2021, look at how easy it was to live per se. We didn't have to pay our mortgage. We didn't have to pay our rent. We're constantly getting stimulus. I feel like people got used to that, bro. And I feel like a lot of Americans, unfortunately, that are not empowering themselves, they're not changing, they're not staying driven, they're just getting swept away with the wind. So on one hand, they're getting used to this. Oh, you're paying for my childcare, you're this and that, and then rug pull.
Yep.
But not only is all of that gone, things are now way more expensive than they were pre-pandemic. So whose fault is that?
Well, it's easily the Fed and the government's fault for allowing it to happen to begin with. I know obviously everybody has a personal responsibility in how they spend their money and, run their lives. But at the same time, this fake economy wouldn't have been possible without this massive amount of stimulus and these moratoriums. I mean, I just think it was totally the wrong direction. Obviously, maybe they thought that was the right decision at the time. But now we can see in hindsight that this was probably one of the biggest mistakes they've ever made. So it's definitely their fault for allowing it to happen to begin with.
Dude, I love talking to like-minded people. I mean, my heart is fluttering right now. Yes, bro. I mean, they I think 2021 was the biggest mistake the Federal Reserve's ever made.
Absolutely.
2021. I mean,
and look now, they're racing to try to fix it, and it's not working.
It can't work. Like, they can manipulate it, they can pull the strings for a long time, but it's a juggernaut. It's a beast. These are hundreds of millions of people we're talking about here. So it's a violent transition. Now, that's the savings rate. Let me pull up now, the delinquency rate. I'm going to pull up some Black Knight figures now. Take a look at this, Michael. This is lagging data. Unfortunately, I don't like how the data is so lagging. To me, it means that they have time to manipulate it, but whatever. This is June. And I just did a video with Steve Daria on this. Again, bro, I keep talking about him, but I mean, he's a really smart guy like you. Really,
yeah, I'm actually supposed to meet with Steve soon. He's going to be over here in Miami in the next.
Oh, at the convention?
Yeah,
dude, he invited me to the convention, dude. I was like, my kids, my wife, I can't. But I love that guy. I hope you guys hit it off. I think you will. But take a look at this. No one should be going into foreclosure until now because obviously the equity. But look at delinquency rate month over month is up 3.31. Foreclosure starts month over month up 26.6%. Also, what this is not saying is that it's not going really into the serious delinquencies, but that's 1% higher. as well from last month, which is roughly 47%, Michael, 47% higher than pre-pandemic. And that's serious delinquencies. Those are 90 days or more late. So 90 days or more late, about 47% higher pre-pandemic. Everything else is getting worse. Can you give your take on this?
I
That's
think
all right.
this directly relates to the previous chart we just saw with the savings rate. People are starting to go broke and they can't afford the house that they're in anymore, especially if they do have an adjustable rate mortgage. Those are probably the first ones that are starting to go delinquent right now. But I would also say people that got the moratoriums on the paying the mortgage, what was that called? The forbearance.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody who was in forbearance, because one thing people didn't realize about the forbearance is once you come out of forbearance, you owe more than you did before you went into forbearance because the interest still accumulates during the forbearance. And depending on the payment plan that these people chose to come out of forbearance, you know, they might not be able to afford it anymore because maybe they have to refinance or maybe they have to do something else with the lender to try to keep the home. And we know a lot of banks are trying to do everything they can right now to keep people into homes. And that's the only reason I think that those foreclosure numbers aren't even higher right now. But as far as you said also, Travis, why are they going into foreclosure when equity is at an all-time high? I think it's also because those are the same people that have borrowed against the property that they don't have the equity that we think they do.
Yeah. Good point, man. And I think also what's interesting to point out is 2008 and 2009 really led to loan modification, right? We really didn't have loan modification as necessarily a possibility to avoid foreclosure. So I really feel like, you know, you're hitting the nail on the head. One of the reasons why these numbers aren't higher is banks are doing everything they can, it seems like, for people to avoid foreclosure, because banks aren't in the business of you know, having an investment portfolio full of houses. They don't want to manage houses. They want to get rich on interest.
Right.
So I'm starting to see that, dude. You know, a lot of people, like the lenders doing 40-year loan modifications, but also a lot of people don't realize you have to qualify for loan modification. So if you had a loss of income, you're not making as much money, that may not even be an option. But I agree, you know, it is getting out of control. You know, we're seeing people further behind. Rentals, I believe, I think 8 million as of June. 8 million residences were behind on rent. 8 million, dude. Do you think, Michael, it's possible to see some of these 15 million, you know, houses start to surge back into the market? And if so, under what conditions?
I think the only way that those are going to come to market, or at least a percentage of them, is if, let's say, these people that own second homes, they end up in some sort of financial hardship. Well, they're going to unload the second home before they unload the place they live in, because obviously they need a place to live too. So the second home will be the first place to go. And, you know, especially here in Florida, where costs are rising through the roof when it comes to insurance, especially property taxes are starting to go up with these higher home values. There's going to be new condo laws coming to an effect in 2024. There's a lot of things changing here that can really up the cost of holding vacant real estate. So I think it all comes down to how long can people hold on to that property, letting it sit vacant, or how many of them are savvy enough to turn it into a rental when they're not using it. So I think it's kind of too soon to tell if those places are going to hit the market. But I think under those conditions, that's when we might see some of them come.
Yeah, and we know that things are, for the most part, getting more and more unaffordable. So Michael, I have, you know, 3 ending questions for you, dude. We're at about 31 minutes, and I'm really appreciative, you know, for you being here. You know, my first question is, and this is hard. Okay, I'm gonna push you in a corner a little bit. You know, I have a lot of faith in you, and I know I could see it in your eyes, like, oh my God, dude, someone called me. Steve did the other day. He's like, Travis, I have a surprise question for you. I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, you can pass on it. I'm like, I ain't gonna pass on it. And he asked me, like, what in the economy right now that's going on is good? And I answered that question. You'll have to watch the video. But my question to you, sir, is can you give our viewers, in your opinion, and I know it is based on local market, okay, can you give a timetable on when you believe it may be safer to go back into the housing market on a nationwide scale? I'm not just saying Miami. That may take longer, or maybe it won't. When do you anticipate, you know, it's going to be safer for specifically first-time home buyers to get back into the market? When do you see this really spiraling out of control?
Yeah, I think that I would say my best guess would be probably in about a year from now, because as the end of the year comes, we're going to see things continue in this direction. We don't know where it's going to go next year yet, because next year could be the year that they put in the reversal of interest rates going back down. So we don't know if they're going to do that yet, but we do know that they're going to continue raising rates for the rest of this year, and that's going to have a lasting impact into next year. So I think by next summer, we could see a ton more inventory on the market and prices down at least 10 to 15% from where they are right now. So is it going to be the best time to buy? Maybe not, but it's going to be probably better than it is right now.
Okay. All right. Very good, sir. Very good answer. That wasn't that hard, right? Or was it? I was trying to.
Not at all.
Oh, all right. All right.
What else you got for me?
So 2 more questions, man. Now, what I've noticed is, especially on the YouTube platform, there are essentially, I'll break it down into 2 lines of thinking. There's the line of thinking and the rationale as if you are investing in real estate and your intention of buying is investing. And then there's the rationale of the first-time home buyer, maybe a little bit more underprepared, maybe a little bit more emotional. Still good people, still smart people. Can you first tell me, while we're waiting, okay, can you talk about what you would suggest first-time home buyers do right now as they're waiting the housing market out?
Yeah, well, that's an easy one, Travis. Right now, you need to be saving money, paying off all of your debt, because the less debt you have, the better rate you're going to qualify for, even when rates are high. And you're going to be able to have a higher debt to income ratio, which means you're going to be able to qualify for more home. And the more savings you have, the more money you're going to have for a down payment, the more you're going to have for home repairs, the more you're going to have to potentially buy down the rate a little bit if you're going to stay in that home for a long time. So doing just those 2 simple things are going to make a gigantic difference in, how you're going to come out of this, because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of the opportunity when it comes. It's that simple.
Beautiful. And then can you, last question, Michael, same thing, but with small time investors. What can you tell small time investors right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that one out, Travis, because I am a small-time investor.
I know.
So I'm trying to figure out what to tell myself. Obviously, I'm following the same advice that I just gave. I don't carry monthly debt, so that's one thing in my advantage, and I'm definitely saving money to pick up hopefully a couple of deals when they start coming. But right now, I don't see anything that makes sense, because I'm not going to be paying cash. I'm going to be financing and using leverage, and nothing makes sense right now to me to buy, at least from what I have seen. So I think for investors, that's going to be another reason we're going to see prices come down, because investors are like, okay, why am I going to buy this? It makes no sense. I'm losing money each month. What kind of an investment is that? So I think that investors need to just stay put right now and just wait for things to get better, unless you can find an opportunity, because maybe you can. Every market's different. Like we talked about earlier, there are still places where homes are affordable. And if you can make the numbers work on that property, then by all means do it. But that's not the situation everywhere. It's certainly not the situation where I live.
Yeah. Good answer, brother. Good answer. So, man, Michael, again, brother, that's going to do it, man. I appreciate all your time. It's 36 minutes. I don't know. Send me the invoice, how much I owe you.
Man, I had a blast here. You don't owe me nothing. This is great. This has been awesome hanging out with you. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Now, before I go, do you have anything you want to end on? Anything you want to say before we go?
I just want to tell everybody that, you should definitely listen to Travis. He knows what he's talking about. He's been in this business for a long time. And, a lot of people say, oh, these guys are just crashers or whatever. It's not that. It's just that you see a trend. You've been doing something for a long time, like we both have. And, you're reporting on it because somebody has to say something. It's better to tell the truth and tell what we're really seeing out there versus just lie about it like some agents do and just try to make that next commission, which I think is morally wrong to do. First of all, if you're lying to your clients, it's not a good thing. It's not a good look for real estate agents. And, I think honesty will prevail in the end. Yeah,
dude. I mean, 100%. This is why I love talking to other content creators in my niche on YouTube. I mean, you understand, you understand all of it now. And just to touch on it, that whole doom and gloom thing, it's a derogatory term used primarily from investors to essentially demean people that have a difference of opinion. And
Right.
really what you and I are doing as professionals, and we make money in real estate, we're sounding the alarm. You know, we have a difference of opinion. We've sided with caution versus over optimism. Now, you know, you shouldn't demean someone for that, but you know, it is what it is, dude. You know, you got to have thick skin. I mean, that's not even the worst of the comments. You know that some of these comments are wild, man. So I'm like,
I
what's
know.
wrong with you people?
I know. It's
But,
unbelievable out there.
but it's still a blessing, man. I mean, we get to really help people, man. And it's them helping themselves, right? But we get to lend a helping hand, and that's my idea of legacy. You know, when you're helping others, when people can learn from you, I mean, I absolutely love it. I'm not impressed by money. I'm not impressed by degrees. I'm impressed by heart, you know, and that's how I'm living my life. But Michael, I really appreciate you, brother. Stay with me 1 minute. I'm going to do our outro. Okay. Just give me a
Sounds
second.
good, Travis.
All right, brother. Now, you guys don't forget to go to Michael's channel, show him some love, subscribe, watch a couple of his videos. And I hope you got some value from today's video. If you're out there investing in real estate, you know, I wish you luck, and I hope you win.